Well, hello, and welcome to the Terri Cole Show. I am so excited that you are here hanging out with me today. Woo, how have you people been? I feel like it's been a while. This is episode 254. I will have a cheat sheet for you at the end of this episode that you can get by going to terricole.com/254. I want to welcome all of the new listeners or the new viewers. If you're watching this on YouTube or maybe you're listening to this on iTunes, welcome to our little crew. I'm so happy that you're here. And hello to my friends who've been here since 2015. How you people doing? I've gotten a lot of emails lately. Many of you know I just finished writing my book. I just finished handing it in. It's not out until April of 2021. Woo! But I have been getting a lot of emails from people asking me questions, yes, that have to do with boundaries, because the book is called Boundary Boss, but also a lot of questions about codependency. Because really, codependency is the rotten foundation that bad relationships are built upon, which then includes, if you are heavily codependent, it just goes without saying that your boundaries are crap as well. So in this episode, I'm answering the question, are you raising a codependent? And how to not do that, because I know you want to not do that. So let's start with, what is codependent? What is codependency between a parent and a child? A codependent parent basically has an unhealthy attachment to the child. So it's expecting this sense of devotion or love or it's expecting a kid to not be a kid because the parent has a need that's being filled. So in a way, unknowingly, a lot of times parents will do this because they're trying to make up for what they didn't get in their own childhood. It's like wanting a do-over, but this is not the way to get a do-over, right? Because we can't get a do-over, we can only heal. So it's so important for parents to understand that the origin of adult codependency is in childhood. So this is a really good time. And do me a favor, approach this episode with an open heart and an open mind. And don't be so hard on yourself if you're doing some of these things. So I'm going to give you some ways, that telltale signs of codependency if you're acting codependently with your child. And then I'll give you some things that you can do to shift it, because of course you can shift it, you know? One thing is if you are a very controlling parent. So it's sort of like having very rigid boundaries with your child, controlling everything about what they eat, what they wear, not really giving them a lot of choices, being on it with their schooling and with their friends and with their play dates, and being organized is good, and being overly rigid and controlling in these areas is not good. It's like you're seeking to control something that doesn't need that much control, and a lot of that is fear-driven behavior. So we don't want to do that because kids don't like it. You're also sending out a message loud and clear, right, that kids are not responsible for their own choices and decisions because someone else in their life always has the power. So that's not what we want to do, right? Where our job is not to, I think a mindset shift is really important here too, because our job is not to spare children all pain and protect them so fully that they have a very limited life experience. What is our job is to prepare them for life in an appropriate way, right? Think about The Prophet, that book. What does it say? The parents, we are the bows, right? And our children are the arrows, and we are giving, a strong place, and then we're letting them fly. I know a lot of parents don't feel this way. I personally do, because to me, that is really great parenting, is preparing kids to have their own grand adventure in life and not to be making up for something that I didn't get in my childhood or that you didn't get in your childhood. So that might be a shift. When you think about codependency, what is it? It's a learned survival strategy, right? If you grew up in a family system, we're trying to stay emotionally safe all the time. So you learned to, in a hypervigilant way, pay attention to the feeling states of others, right? You want to behave in a way as a kid, if you walked on eggshells quite a bit, sometimes we would describe it this way, that you wanted to avoid upsetting the apple cart or pissing off someone if they were volatile. So again, our uber focus out and on other people, and in this case, we're talking about this concentrated mono focus on the child, that comes from something that was adaptive at the time. It probably did keep us safe, right? So you can't raise a child in a way that you want to and never rock the boat and never have a hard conversation and never confront behavior, because that's just sweeping things under the rug, which isn't helpful. Another thing we want to be aware of is, are you living vicariously through your child? Maybe you really wanted to be a ballerina, but your parents didn't want you to, or someone was mean and said you weren't the right kind of kid to be a ballerina, right? And then you get really invested in your child being a ballerina. And if your child actually likes to dance and wants to do that, that's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that. But if your child doesn't, and there's a part of you that wants to guilt and manipulate and sort of force them to do it because of your sort of dream unfulfilled, that's something to really be aware of. It's unhealthy, right? You want to get your own needs met now in life. So something unfulfilled in your childhood does not have to continue to go unfulfilled. If you like to dance, dance. Maybe you will not be a prima ballerina for the New York Ballet, but you can still get the joy from that experience. So another thing to look out for is the fix-it mentality. If you take on all the problems of your child, if there is something happening at school and you want to go talk to the kid, and I'm not saying, listen, sometimes it's appropriate, of course, to involve the management at the school, sure. But I feel like when I was growing up, that didn't happen. And there was definitely an expectation that we would sort of figure it out ourselves. And then what happens is you do. So again, we don't want to be sending covert or overt messages to children that we think that they're incapable. And really, with something like you fixing all of their problems, rescuing, right? Too much rescuing. It's the unhealthy helping where it's just too much. And then I would have clients, if I were seeing a family, where the parent would be like, why doesn't the teenager have any problem-solving skills? I'm like, because you never let them have any experiences to grow those skills? How are they going to? Just by you telling them what to do? That isn't how we learn. Think about the biggest lessons you've learned in your life. You learn them by doing them. We learn them from messing up and then being like, wow, that was so painful. I'm going to really work to not do that again. Most of us really need to learn on our own. And there is nothing really noble about trying to protect your child from life experiences, from all life experiences. And of course, I'm not talking about encouraging them to do unsafe things. Obviously, safety first. But what about expansion? What about, instead of saying, this is what I think you should do, just asking them, what do you think you should do? Even if you feel like you need to weigh in at some point, and that's okay. And listen, these are all have to do with the developmental age of the child as to what's appropriate. As children get older and older, preteens and teenagers, then that is a really important time where we're letting the chips fall where they may and not making an excuse if they didn't finish their term paper on time, and not saying that there was a death in the family if there wasn't, to spare them from the consequences, because that isn't the way life is when you get out there. And it makes a kid not just grow up to be a codependent, but to be entitled, to feel like breaking the rules is cool, and that you do it, so it's okay. You've got to realize, and I think that most of you do as parents, but kids, whether they're toddlers or whether they're teenagers, right? The terrible twos or the terrifying teens, they're all looking to you. They're absorbing what you're doing. Even when teenagers seem like they don't care because like you're so uncool and they're so cool and they know everything at that point, they're really looking at you and they remember everything that goes on. So you've got to really look at what kind of behavior are you modeling and what kind of behavior do you want to model. So let's talk about a couple of steps that you can take to avoid being overly focused on your child, ignoring other relationships in your life, because that's another symptom of codependency between a child and a parent, using guilt to manipulate the child. Those are all things that set a kid up to grow up to be a codependent. So what can you do? Well, you can fulfill your own needs. As I said before, if you want to do something, you can do that and realize that your child is separate from you. You are the bow, they are the arrow, right? That's one. Do an inventory of your own codependent childhood experiences, which I'm going to give you a couple of questions to get you started in the download. So you can go to terricole.com/254 to get a hold of that. Remember this shift in mindset from total protection to actually preparing children to go out into the world. You want to prepare them and set them up to be the most fully expressed version of themselves, hopefully, that you possibly can. Understanding your own background has everything to do with you being able to stop the cycle. And it's never too late to do it better than you're doing now if you feel like you're doing this. It really isn't. When you do that little codependent inventory in the download, you're going to get a really clear shot in black and white of what your childhood experiences were and how it set you up to be a codependent. And the last thing I want to say about this for you as the parent is that you really do have to heal your own codependency. That has to be a priority. Self-care. Doing things in the world that make you feel good about yourself, independent of your family, your spouse, your child, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whoever it is. It's really about you learning to be interdependent in your relationships instead of being codependent in your relationships. And that will take some healing. And it does mean, going down into the basement, as I like to say, of your mind, right? Your unconscious mind, to remember the way things were. Because it isn't about making you wrong, and it's really not about blaming your parents. It's about understanding that what you learned and you behave that way for a reason, right? It was adaptive then. And then we grow up and those adaptive experiences become maladaptive. So it's about shifting them. But again, I want you to be going into this whole process with a gentleness towards yourself, right? An open heart, an open mind. And that is a beginner's mind. It's for you to learn something. The most powerful thing you can do to not raise a codependent child is to heal your own codependency. And I have a couple of suggestions for you also in the download. Obviously, therapy is an option. I'm a therapist. I think everyone should be in therapy because why not? It just makes everything faster. So there is now virtual online therapy, of course. But we partnered with a virtual online therapy service even prior to this. So the link to use will be in there, BetterHelp. So it's just terricole.com/BetterHelp. And I also have a codependency course if you're interested. It's a 6-week course called Crushing Codependency. And hey, if it's something that seems right for you, check it out. There'll be a link. You can see what's in it, what's going on right now. There's a waiting list for the next time that we're going to be opening it up. But it's something that a lot of people have gotten a lot out of. And there's lots of stuff out there about healing your own codependency. But before you start to try to work on your child, because it's very easy. All the emails that came into me about this were people being like, I see it in my child and I need to stop it immediately. And I'm like, the fastest way to stop it in your child is to recognize and heal it within yourself. So I want to hear all the things that you learn about yourself. So go download it now, terricole.com/254. If you do not subscribe to YouTube, please do it right now. There's a little bell. Don't you want to subscribe so that every time I do something new, you know? I think you do. Same thing with iTunes. Hey, you guys asked me, how can we support the show? We love the show. If you love the show, drop me a positive review on iTunes. If you are an iTunes listener, I would super appreciate that. And share this with the people in your world. If there's someone who is struggling with this and you think that this would help them, please share it on your social media platforms. Tag me. Put me in your IG stories if it spoke to you. I love to see that. I usually repost it in mine because it makes me feel so happy to know that we're all sort of raising the tide together, the mental health tide, right? I know there's a saying, but I can't think of what it is right now. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of The Terri Cole Show. I'm sending you all the good vibes. And as always, take care of you.